don't know if that's any better.
Is that any better? I don't even know what's going on. Equations. See, it's tripping out. I'm sorry. What's happening on our end of the equation is our StreamYard is tripping out, and it's not showing us what it's showing you. So it's really weird. So I apologize in advance. But anyway, let's just pick it up from here, shall we?
Okay.
All right. There we go. This is real life, folks. So much for polish.
Sometimes things don't work
Sometimes
right.
things don't work out.
That's okay.
We apologize. Now I'm going to have to splice these all together somehow on YouTube. So anyway, welcome back to Wolf Mountain, my friends. Sorry for the technical difficulties. But we left off at our favorite thing ever of the week, right?
Yeah. So we run your thing, I think.
Oh, yes. My favorite thing ever of the week was not quite as deep as yours. We have these e-bikes, and they're a little basic and a little kind of kooky, and I'm not quite sure about them, but I put these giant brown balloony off-road dirt tires on mine, and it just made my day. It looks so ridiculous. I love it. And now it's respectable. It's just extreme enough where I like it now.
It looks like you rode through
It's like a cartoon bike. It's ridiculous.
really sloppy mud and just put the tires.
You've seen photos of it on Facebook or Instagram. You'll know what I'm talking about. But that's my favorite thing over the week. I don't know why that amused me so much, but it did. Now I can ride my basic e-bike. If anyone ever used an e-bike, they're actually kind of cool. You can get
They're magic.
They're like magic. Melanie says it's like hitting a magic mushroom.
It's Mario Kart.
In Mario Kart, and it just like it sends you flying. But anyway, all right, that was my favorite thing ever of the week, and now we are take 3, back on track. Okay, well, I'm going to quit talking now in case this doesn't interrupt anymore or do anything weird. I'm not going to touch anything, but as a reminder, you can comment. I'm reading your comments, and we're going to turn it over to Melanie, who's going to talk to us this week about
Type 3s. So that makes sense. So we've had 3 tries so far.
3 tries
type
to make
3,
this work.
3 tries.
Oh my gosh, dude.
So.
I really hate it when things don't work out, guys. I'm like a perfectionist, which is
like a 1.
It's like a 1.
3s also like things to work well.
I'm not going to let it derail me, though.
Good job.
Yes. So, anyway, how are you guys doing out there? Who's watching? Mohini, Dad, hey, David, what's going on?
Thanks for staying up late,
Thanks
David Michael.
for staying up late, David. Thanks for people that hung in there with the technical difficulties. And now we will take it away. Coach, Enneagram Coach Mel.
Okay, so in short, the Enneagram is a personality typing system that helps us to understand ourselves better, see some of our blind spots, understand some of our motivations and the lenses that we view life through, and helps us to understand and have compassion for other people better than we might otherwise.
And we hear a lot of people say that your Enneagram puts them in a box, but
it does not do that. It just reveals the box you're already in.
And a lot of people freak out and say, I'm not a number. But Enneagram type is not about giving you a number. It's numbered categories for personality types. Like I am a type O positive blood type, but I am not a consonant vowel. I'm not a vowel. Dang it. It's kind of the same thing. Type A. You're not a vowel either.
You can't tell me what
type I am. You can't tell me what vowel I am.
But you can.
But it is just, it shows you the box you're already in, right? You ever say that? Yeah.
Yep. So we've been going through the numbers. So we've done type 1 and type 2. And so
type 1
in order, type 1 is the idealist. And 2 is the helper. And today brings us to type 3, the achiever. Sometimes called the performer.
Hey, Marlena's on. Hey, Marlena.
Speaking of type 3,
Julie, you guys missed all the technical disasters.
Or maybe you didn't, so enjoy. Okay,
all right, let's go.
Type 3, we'll dive in after a little delay there. So,
train's moving.
Yes. So type 3s are very success-oriented. They're goal and image conscious. They get stuff done. They are efficient. They tend to be good at sales and at selling themselves. They,
Wait, isn't Marlena? Marlena, you're a type 3, right?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
They work very hard and may, in fact, struggle with workaholism. They tend to identify a lot with their work. They are competitive. They want to be the best. It is hard for them to be emotionally vulnerable. They don't really want people to see their flaws, tend to repress their emotions somewhat because emotions get in the way, and it's hard to be efficient and successful if you're having to mess with a bunch of feelings.
Dang, feelings. It's much easier to be a reptile.
It is easier to be a reptile, I
Do
guess.
reptiles have feelings? I don't know. I think some reptiles have feelings. They just can't smile or frown because their mouth's
It's
rigid,
hard to
so
know.
It's hard to know. It's subtle. You really have to pay attention.
Yeah. So some famous type 3s, Tiger Woods, Oprah Winfrey, Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise is a type 3.
Yeah, Mitt Romney.
I could see that.
Yeah, and some teachers have assigned types to different countries, like the personality of the country is embodied in a certain country, and they would say the U.S. is a type 3 country, and I totally agree. We're very success-driven, image-conscious. We want to be the best, competitive, so which makes it challenging for type 3s that want to become healthier to be immersed in a type 3 culture. When you're having to battle with the downsides of 3.
Did you say the U.S. is an unhealthy type 3 culture?
At the moment.
I think there's a type 13, and that's what the U.S. is right now.
Yes, everybody's ramped up a little bit.
Do we have type 3s out there? I know Marlena is a type 3, I think, or has type 3 tendencies.
I think.
I didn't know that my dad take this test. We think you're a 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
Herb, if you want, we will help you take the test and see if our theory is correct.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start with you might be a 3 if.
Might be a 3 if.
So here'll be a series of statements, and if a lot of these resonate with you, you may be a type 3, or if they sound a lot like somebody you know, they may be. So you might be a type 3 if it's important for you to come across as a winner.
Winning.
If you love walking in a room and knowing you're making a great first impression. If you could persuade Bill Gates to buy a Mac.
What?
If you're persuasive and a good salesperson.
Gotcha. Okay.
Bill Gates would not be inclined to buy a Mac.
I know a type 3, and I always said he could sell you your own shirt.
Yes, I know who you're thinking of. If the keys to your happiness are efficiency, productivity, and being acknowledged as the best. If you don't like it when other people slow you down.
Here's my reach.
If you know how to airbrush failure so it looks like a success.
Does anybody airbrush anymore?
Photoshop?
That tells you when this list was compiled.
I don't know when this book was written. If you'd rather lead than follow. If you are competitive to a fault. If you can find a way to win over and connect with just about anyone. If you are a world champion multitasker. If you keep a close watch on how people are responding to you in the moment. If it's hard for you to not take work with you on vacation. If it's hard for you to name or access your feelings.
This is my feeling, Bob. I can name all my feelings.
This is Bob. This is Fred.
I've never named Bob. They're more like Asriel.
Oh, that's 4 feelings. 4s have all the feelings. If you're not one to talk too much about your personal life. If sometimes you feel like a phony. If you love setting and accomplishing measurable goals. If you like other people to know about your accomplishments. If you like to be seen in the company of other successful people. If you don't mind cutting corners, if it gets the job done more efficiently. And it's just about a means. And if you, if people say about you that you don't know how or when to stop working. If all or many of those are true, then you may be a 3.
Yeah. I have some of those tendencies. I think my wing is, I'm a 4, but.
Your wing is a 3. You're
Here's a 3.
dominantly.
I say I have all the 3 attributes, but none of them to get anything done. It's a real bummer.
Dang it!
I
You
have
need
all
to
like the
lean
self-conscious
into the
vanity
efficiency
parts
and
of the 3,
productivity ones.
and I don't have any of the productivity ones. I need to work on that. All right. So we have any 3s out there? I don't know if you guys are commenting. I'm not getting it because of the weirdness here, but feel free to comment.
Okay.
Does that ring true for anybody out there?
So some more little info about our type 3s. Their core fear is of being thought, being exposed as or thought of as being unsuccessful or inefficient or worthless. Their core desire is to be respected, admired, successful, and valuable. Their core weakness or their deadly sin, some say, is deceit. And it's not so much that they are prone to lying. It is that they are more prone to believing their own press releases, that they are more vulnerable to self-deception, because 3s tend to project a persona, and sometimes they become so invested in that persona that they believe that's the real them. When there's more to them.
3s have trouble with lying as some of their deadly sins?
Well, deceit is, but they wouldn't. It's not that all 3s are liars, although we'll talk about wings, and one type is more prone to lying, or exaggerating at least.
Interesting.
But in general, it's that self-deception. It's harder for 3s to be honest with themselves than some other types.
That's interesting.
Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, I knew a 3 that would just lie all the time, but it was interesting because I just was like, how could they do that? But I think they actually believed what they said. And I'm usually really good at picking out lies that they feel like something to me. But I was always puzzled by this person. I could often not tell when they were lying, but it's because they actually believed what they were saying.
Yeah.
And so it didn't feel the same to me when someone lies and knows they're lying. So it's very interesting.
Right. Yeah. So in that case, they were.
It's a little pressure off you empaths out there that get lied to sometimes, and they're like, I can't believe I didn't see that coming. If someone believes I've discovered myself, if someone believes their lies, it's harder for you to pick up that it is a lie if you're wired that way. Yeah.
And so to be clear, that's an unhealthy trait. So a healthier 3 would not be in that situation.
Yeah.
So talking about the 2 wings. So the wings are either number on either side of your number. So 3 can have a 2 wing or a 4 wing. So the 2 wing is called the star. And so they choose with a 3 wing, or 3s with a 2 wing, sorry. They're charming and likable, adaptable, engaging, confident. They struggle more with being plagued by comparison than the other wing. They tend to be really good coaches because they can really see potential in others and bring that forward. So that's a great talent they have. And I even know some 3 wing 2 coaches, and they are fantastic. Then the other wing would be the 4, and that is the professional. So a 3 with a 4 wing would tend to be a little bit more private, more quiet, more focused on achieving recognition through their work and their personal status, allow themselves to be more emotionally vulnerable and sensitive. And they can really be the work achievers out of the whole Enneagram. The most
my 3-4 wing is.
Most identified with their work and mastering their skill or craft.
Quiet up there.
Yes, taking it all in.
Taking it in, yes.
Then another interesting thing about the Enneagram is we kind of move to different numbers when we're feeling stressed or when we're in a place of growth or security. And that changes how we behave. And it's kind of nice to know these because then in yourself or others, you can kind of spot if someone isn't doing well or if they are doing well. So for type 3, if they are not in a very good space, they are going to move to type 9. So that's my number. So it's pretty obvious, I think, when a 3 isn't doing well because they move to the unhealthy side of 9. So they will withdraw. They will they'll stop caring about achieving. They will
Stuff their emotions.
they always stuff their emotions, so that's probably not going to change, but they will continue to do that. Yes. They will numb out, which is a coping mechanism of 9s, by video games or substances or TV, or just they kind of get out of reality if they can. They just want to be left alone, not bothered. So that's not their normal. So you'll know a 3 is in not a good spot if they go there. If they're feeling real 9-ish.
Negative 9 traits that they do when they're
the bad 9s. Yeah. So if they're not good, they go bad. We
gotta clarify that, because sometimes we say that, like, oh, they go to like a 2 in unhealth, and people are like, oh, 2s are bad then. It's like, no, it's the unhealthy side of a 2.
Right. And I didn't want to go into this because it's more complicated, but it also, like, at their very healthiest, then they lean into the healthiest aspects of their stress number. But that gets a little bit more complicated than we want to go into in our short little overview. It's a complex system. Mm-hmm. So when your type 3 is doing really well, if they are growing emotionally, then you'll see them move more towards that good side of type 6. So they will be more focused on the good of the whole instead of more self-focused on their own success. They will be better team players. They will be less competitive, more cooperative. They'll be more willing to help, to ask for other people's advice and help than they would otherwise. And they will also be able to be more vulnerable and expose their soft underbelly of feelings.
Soft underbelly of feelings. Hey, Amanda.
Let's see. So 3s are smack dab in the center of the heart triad, but ironically, they are emotions. They repress their emotions.
Huh. So they lead with their heart, but they repress their emotions.
But it's repressed, yeah. So I kind of look at it. So the 3 numbers that are in the heart triad, 2, 3, and 4. So 2s are very focused outward on other people's emotions. 4s are focused very inward on their own emotions, and 3s are focused in and out, but their focus is more on repressing. So they have work to do to be able to get in touch with their emotions. And I feel ya, because so do 9s.
Repressed people. Emotional cowards.
No. Wiring. It's wiring, man.
Oh, wiring.
Yes.
I might be not emotion repressed enough.
Let's repress those a little bit.
Balance.
Balance is the name of the game. Okay, let's see. So,
I'm a 4 in case anyone's wondering.
Which everyone is wondering.
No one is. See, it's about me, right? I know you were all wondering and thinking about me.
No one else did it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is some ways to get along with a type 3 if you have a 3 in your life.
I love 3s.
I love 3s too. So make sure you express your love for them for who they are, not just what they do. It's great to appreciate what they do, but don't forget to let them know you love them for them. They don't have to perform to, earn your love. If you have to have any hard conversations with them, keep it constructive, give them positive feedback. They don't do great with having overly critical conversations, and they don't really do great with a very emotional conversation. So
that explains a lot.
Yes. Let's see. Yeah. Let's see, a little thing on type 3 parents. So if you have a type 3 parent, you will notice that they are consistent, dependable, and loyal. They can struggle between wanting to be with their family and also wanting to achieve in their career. So that is a classic 3 struggle, is working too much. And they do expect their kids to be responsible, accomplished, successful, and organized. So they probably have a high bar for you kiddos.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, kids.
But you'll probably be well served.
Children of the Threes.
It could be a movie.
Mom won't love me unless I achieve.
Yes, she will. Okay, so how you can relate to a 3 in conflict. So go with a problem-solving approach. They'll want solutions. Keep your emotions balanced. Don't exaggerate negative or pessimistic emotions because 3s tend to be optimistic and positive.
Don't be drama queen then.
Don't be a drama queen or a drama king. Let's see, focus on the positive ways that they can address the concerns instead of just complaining about something that's wrong, because they will want to fix it. They just need to have specific steps what to do.
So they're the people that need a solution, not just a problem pointed out.
Yeah, they're probably
As
not going
we
to love
all
it
should.
if you just come and complain. They'd like something concrete, like, okay, here's the problem. How can we address it?
I think that's challenging any area. With any type.
It is, yeah. Some types need that more of the concrete than others. So I only have I'll just go over my time a smidge since we got to a weird start.
We did get to a weird start.
Yeah. So just a couple little things activities that 3s can do to improve their own emotional health. One is because they like to perform and they like to be the center of attention, to do something creative just for yourself. So draw or paint or sculpt or dance or sing for no one else to see. Just do it for yourself, for your own feedback and nobody else's. So that's one.
That's interesting. I wonder if that leans into where I lean in my 3, because as an artist, I often do. I find myself doing things because I want I want to see how people respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it actually motivates me to create sometimes because I want the I guess the like button. Is that a 3 thing?
Well, I mean that
thing?
taps into something from all of us. That's why they put that thing there. But it's especially strong in 3s, and 4s have that concern about image.
Yeah.
Also.
So then trying to get back to the place where I just do like art, let's say, or whatever. I think that having the GoPro syndrome as an extreme sports athlete, it started to get to a point where I would just I'd go out to kite surf or whatever, and then I'd take my camera with me and I'd spend more time filming myself for other people than I would actually, setting up my camera and stuff for the sport. And then one day I got to this thing I'm not doing this because I love it anymore. I don't know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get validation, and it would hit me that I'm actually not actually doing the thing that I'm doing. I wonder if that's kind of a type 3.
Yeah.
Is
I
it?
mean, 4s have a part of that too, but that is also a 3 thing. And not that there's anything wrong with wanting positive feedback. It's fine to be wired that way, but that shouldn't be your only motivation.
Yeah, your motivator. Well, it changes your behavior.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And one other little thing you could try is to try something that you're not naturally good at. And this will make a 3
like me speaking.
squirm. It's really hard for a 3. They just want to be the best at everything. They are hardwired to want to be the best. So challenge yourself to do something you're not naturally inclined to excel at. I think it's just that's good for all of us to be pushed a little bit, to be challenged, to not always be the star, not be the best, and it'll be good for you.
Amber, that's why Amber draws. She wants to impress people.
I'm impressed, Amber.
We're just impressed with you anyway. Draw away. Good. That's
okay.
good.
Yeah, I think that's my time. So.
That's your time.
And we
That's
love
very
you
good.
3s, and
Yeah,
I
we
love all the 3s I know, and I like having 3s on my team. They really get stuff done, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I had a friend that was a really close friend who was a 3 actually, and if I would have known what I knew now about their wiring, I would have treated that friendship differently. Because after knowing what I know now, I directly did stuff that would just probably never let them be powerful because I didn't know what I was doing. I was expecting, them to respond and think like I did. So.
And they don't.
They don't. So that's pretty interesting. I like that a lot. I'm going to hand that back to you. Yeah. I really like So when you're talking, you're thinking about the threes in my life that I really want to be able to communicate with better and love better. And I think that for me, it runs into me having to do things that aren't natural for me. Now, like I'm not a words person. It's hard for me to. I wasn't given a lot of positive affirmation or ever needed it, but that some people do. She does, and so it shouldn't be awkward for you to say, kind things and positive affirmations for people. But I find that's so unnatural for me. It's one of the things. That's my thing that makes me squirm. Uncomfortably, positively affirming people without it sounding phony or forced.
You did good.
Do I? Good. Anyway, cool. Well, thanks, babe.
Okay. So next week we will do number 4.
Number 4 is next week.
The best.
Yay. It's all about me. Cool. Thanks, babe.
You're welcome.
That was very helpful. Hope you guys like that. And I take a 30-second pause, but I'm not touching anything. So I'll just stay here as we transition over to my section. My 30-minute slot. I don't know what's going on with our StreamYard. Hope you guys are all picking it up okay. But pretend we had a break for 30 seconds. And we're back.
Hi.
Hi. Cool. Well, that's really interesting. Yeah. So I have a couple things to talk about today. One, it's definitely a word that the Spirit's been talking to me about for the last couple weeks. And 2, something that was on my mind a lot today. I hear the Spirit a lot through animal symbology in the natural world, and just always have. It's one of the doors I go through to hear the Spirit. I don't know why that is. Probably something I know a lot about, and God speaks our language, so knows how to talk to us. But I remember, well, at the beginning of this, I intended to make this Wolf Mountain a space for people that were more spiritually sensitive, alternative spiritual experience. And we're not quite getting answers that they needed in the communities they were in. I am blessed and lucky that I found communities that had paradigms for spiritual gifts, and SSPs, as I have now called them, spiritually sensitive people. And so I'm just going to get back to doing some of that, giving people tools that are wired that way to navigate life and to actually help people that love people that are spiritually sensitive, spiritual gifts, kind of like the Enneagram, to watch them so they know when they're in health and when they're not in health. And so I was thinking about this today. I was out riding my enduro bike out in the mountains, my dirt bike, and I don't know why I kept thinking of frogs. And I remember a long time ago, it was like one of the first times I heard, I think, the Spirit audibly in my head. And we were driving through Ashland, actually. And
that's in Southern Oregon.
Southern Oregon, in case anyone doesn't know. And I was looking at a bunch of, well, there was like the emo movement back then. It was like, I called them like wimpy goth kids. They're like crybaby goth kids.
Emo.
And I was kind of making fun of that movement for a while. Like, why are all these emo kids, they were like goth kids with no bite, and we were driving through, I was kind of gothy when I was younger. We were driving through Ashland, and there was all these kind of like emo-y goth kids on the side of the road. And the Holy Spirit said, you know what? Those kids are like frogs. And I'm like, okay, what? Okay. I was like, why? Well, they're like frogs. And like, she's like, well, what do you know about frogs? And interesting thing about frogs is that they, like scientists study them because they're the first animal to respond when there's a pollutant in the environment. Like a toxin. Like Melanie told a story once she found a pool of frogs in the woods, and they all had like multiple limbs shooting out of their joints, like up to like 10 legs.
It was crazy. Right? Yeah, this whole pond of very mutated frogs with crazy legs. Yeah, as many as 10 on one frog.
Because there was something in their environment, and later we discovered that sometimes lead a parasite that'll attack their joints, and as they grow, it makes their legs split off. Something you can't see, but scientists will actually discover, environmental scientists will monitor frogs because they're permeable and to their environment, and they're often the first creature to respond when there's a pollutant or something wrong. And so what the Holy Spirit was telling me, that these kids are like that. They're spiritually sensitive, and they're kind of permeable to the spirit realm. And when there's something being broadcast or something going on in an area, they're in an unclean, unhealthy environment, then they're the first ones that are going to mutate. That's why that movement, the emo thing, rose the time it did, because they were responding to something that was being broadcast in the atmosphere. And so they adopted this like look. And that group looked, they kind of looked, it was like, I would call it like a spirit of death on them. I recognized it. And it was interesting. And so later, as I grew in my understanding what it meant to be empathic or clairsentient, I realized that people that are really spiritually sensitive people will kind of start to mutate when they're in a dirty environment. And other people, it might not be evident to other people, but it is to them. And so we can, if you lean towards that bent, you can really start to monitor your own behavior and your health and your thoughts. And, if they start to get out of character, you start to get in this bad pattern of, having negative manifestations in any of those areas. It could be just your environment, something you're picking up in the environment that you don't necessarily see, and vice versa. If you're like a parent with kid, and your kid's starting to like, you move to a new area, or they're in a new school, or they have new friends, or something's going on with them and they're just starting to act different, that's kind of like them being like frogs. They're like picking up something in the environment that you don't necessarily see, or you might never even notice, but they will. And so that's just one little tip I wanted to throw out there. Someone probably needed to hear that today, that I feel like someone out there needs to get in a clean environment, like they're starting to mutate. And that's because you're like frog. You're spiritually sensitive. You're more permeable than some people to your spiritual environment. And so you need to start taking stock of where you're at and what's changed in your life. And that might be something or somebody that you need to remove, get away from, and get back into a clean environment. So frogs are very interesting. They need, they need to be around moisture, or they just dry out and die. And they have to have a very specific environment. And so if you think of like moisture, like water is a symbol for the spirit. The spirit's very elemental. And if you're not around that source of life, you'll dry up and die pretty fast. And so I just thought I'd throw that out there. Hope that helps somebody. I was thinking about that a lot today. So
I think it does.
It does.
Resonate.
Does it resonate with somebody? Oh, good. Well, let's take a short break. This broadcast brought to you by Meow Wolf, a crazy, trippy, collaborative artist thing in Santa Fe.
And the state of Oregon. We love Oregon.
That was ridiculous. All right. So I want to talk today about spirit and truth. And what it means to worship God in spirit and truth. So I don't know if any of you've seen the Chosen series. It's an app. It's like the story of Jesus that this director did. And I honestly, like most Christian movies and TV, are super cheesy, and I won't watch them because they're just kind of like a little agenda-ish.
This one's really good.
It's so good, yeah.
It was our favorite thing ever of the week a couple weeks
yeah,
ago.
it was.
It's really good.
And it's just refreshing. I'm like, oh yeah, this is why we do this. It's like the message of Jesus. It's like the center of it all, right? And lots of things get in the way of that and overcomplicate that basic message that we're all supposed to carry. But there's a scene in there. It's that the story is basically about the life of Jesus and his disciples while Jesus was on earth. And it's really good. And it was a good palate cleanser for all the craziness that's going on right now. But there's a scene in there, and it's a scene right out of the Bible, where Jesus is cutting through a city called Samaria. And he stops at a well, specifically to talk to this woman who comes to the well to draw water. And what you need to know as backstory is the Jews and the Samaritans hated each other. The Jews treated them awfully. They treated them like they were less than dogs. They wouldn't touch them, talk to them, walk through their city. They would go hours out of their way to go around Samaria so they didn't get tainted by the Samaritans. And so Jesus being, Jewish, and all his disciples at the time being Jewish, they didn't really want to go through there. But he had some work to do. And so this woman comes out to draw some water in the middle of the day. And what you don't know about this woman is that she's not supposed to be out in the middle of the day. Samaritan women are only allowed to draw water in the evening and in the morning. And one, that Jews didn't talk to Samaritans, rabbis didn't talk to women, Jewish men would no way talk to Samaritan women, and there's no way that a man would ask a woman for a drink of water. And Jesus asks this woman as she's drawing water out of the well if he can have a drink of water. And so it starts up a conversation. She's surprised. It's like, what's this Jew doing talking? A male Jew talking to a Samaritan woman who's obviously out in the wrong time of day, drawing water. It's like, who is this guy? And the story goes on, and Jesus basically introduces himself as Messiah to her. And first, he tells her some things about her life that no one would know unless they knew her, that she had had 5 husbands, and that she was like, oh, I see you're a prophet because you're telling me things about myself that no one should know. And it's not because she's a hussy, because women back then could not divorce their husbands. Husbands had to divorce their wives. So this woman had been discarded 5 times, basically, throughout her life. Something happened where her husband threw her away. And so a lot of times people read that and think she was some kind of like hussy. But in reality, she was this woman that had been discarded quite a bit in her life. And interestingly enough, this is the first person that Jesus introduced himself to as the Messiah to, was a woman, Samaritan. And she became like literally the first evangelist for the gospel of Jesus. So take that. Jesus, leader of the women's liberation movement.
Go Jesus.
Yeah. So she gets in conversation with him because she discovers he's a prophet. She thinks he's a prophet. And she starts talking about how the Jews say we're supposed to worship in Jerusalem, but Samaritans worship on this mountain, Mount Gerizim, I think it was called. And that was the biggest rift between them. One of them, the Samaritans, like disregarded the temple, and the Jews disregarded that mountain. So there's this big rift between them. Where was the holy place to worship God, right? And Jesus says a really interesting thing to her. He says that the time is coming, and now has come, where true worshipers of God will worship in spirit and truth, because they're the kind of God, worshipers that God seeks. And he said, God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in spirit and truth. And that's kind of weird. And what does that mean? These people were really focused on, like, this is the only place you can worship, right? And each one of them had their place, and it was like this big division between them. And that's where you have to go. Like, you go to that place and worship. And Jesus was saying, it doesn't matter where you worship. That season's over. That era is over. What God's looking for is people that no matter where they're at or they find themselves, they will worship me in spirit and in truth. And that's an interesting way to say it, in spirit and in truth. It's like worshiping God for real. The truth, the word truth there is aletheia. I think it's how you pronounce it. It's a feminine noun. It's the same word used for spirit of truth, Ruach HaKodesh, which is another name for the Holy Spirit, which is also a feminine noun. So it's that truth, worship God in spirit and truth. And it means to, like, the truth, that means like with sincerity and reality and fullness. Like there's no false pretense with it. It's like the truthfully doing something, And I've really felt like it's interesting times, right, with COVID, and people are like bumped out of their places of worship because, whatever you believe, on paper, the science would be that that's like one of the worst environments to spread, this virus. You all know the story, close quarters, singing. And then, some people think it's a conspiracy. Whatever you believe, the fact is that it's hard to get to the temples, the places of worship, right? And so it's interesting. You see a lot of people are just kind of like, without the culture, they're just kind of like stopping pursuing God. And I really feel like it's a test. Like it's kind of like a not a weeding out, but a refining, like a and not because God doesn't know who his true worshipers are, but because he wants to see us to see where we're at. It's often that way when God tests us. It's not so he can see where we're at, it's so we know where we're at. And God kept bringing that back to me, spirit. I need worshipers that'll worship me in spirit, truth. In fact, I woke up the other morning, a couple mornings ago, last Sunday actually, and I heard it audibly in my head. I'm looking for people that will worship me in spirit and truth. And it was interesting because I tuned into Bethel that morning live stream, and the first verse that they spoke out of was that God's looking for worshipers who will worship in spirit and truth. And so I kind of stumbled through that, but here's what I really want to say. This is what I feel like the Lord's saying. It's like the church building isn't God. It's not even the temple. Actually, you're the temple of God. And I've often said that. You can tell people, but when people don't get that you are the temple of the Spirit, is that they change behavior when they go into a place they think is holy, like a church. They'll change their language. They'll change their behavior. Where the building itself is not more holy than you. Like you are the temple of God. The building's not the temple of God. It's a building full of temples of God, So the church building isn't what's holy. It's not the temple. It's not God. The community isn't God. We all love church community. It's very important. Fellowship and community is super important. But it's not God. The worship is not God. The music's not God. The Bible is not God. The Bible is in God. It's not God. The prophets aren't God. The pastor's not God. God exists outside of all of that. All of that used to never not be there, and people still went after God. And what I'm trying to say is that what God really has his eye on now is people that are seeking him without all that, still as fervently, with as much passion and interest and hunger to know actually who God is, like to connect this way. And it's always been my desire to like connect people to God this way, and move all that stuff out of the way, because all that stuff complicates the direct connection. Because things will come and go, like things will change, like sand dunes shifting and moving and changing shape all the time. And if all that stuff is the catalyst for us pursuing God, it's not truth. Understand what I'm saying? We are only as strong as our community. We're only as passionate as the temple that we go to. We need all the things in place so we can worship God. But we should be able to worship God and reach out to God no matter where we're at. It's our passion. All that stuff doesn't matter. It comes and goes. It changes and shifts. Cultures rise and fall, and methods come and go. And God's looking for people that are pursuing him now, even though things aren't in place the way people think that they should be. And those things are all just a bonus, really. Like the disciples didn't have a church or worship music or the Bible. You know what I mean? And I think people didn't think of that. You think they're looking up Matthew? It's like, I am Matthew. I'm going to write this later. You know what I mean?
Right, the gospel.
Yeah. I mean, and so that is the challenge. And I mean, it's not for everybody, but the people that are really passionate about knowing who God is and like connecting to God that way, and just they're seeking God outside of that scenario. And sometimes I think it's easier for them, actually. Like when I first started down this path, church is important. Don't hear what I'm saying wrong. It's good to gather in community and worship. It's healthy. We need it. But it almost complicated my relationship with God when people started telling me how I should experience God. And it was more pure for me when it was one-on-one, and that's the way it should be. The most pure connection we have and most powerful one we have with God should be one-on-one. And the idea is of church is at its base is trying to establish the kingdom of heaven on earth. Is what God commands us to do. It's like we're here to establish kingdom of heaven on earth. Like, your will be done, your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And I was thinking today, like, all the information for the forest, a forest is in one seed. You can literally make a forest out of one seed, right? And the kingdom of heaven is like this, but you are the seed. Like, all of that information is in you to establish that, no matter where you're at, without the things you think you need that are church to you, that are worshiping, that are pursuing God. If you're a Christian, what it looks like to be a Christian, like, you literally are like a heaven seed. Like, the Spirit of God is in you, like the creator of all things, like the author of life. It says you're in him and he's in you. And so you're literally like a seed that contains all the information to establish heaven wherever you're at. And that's some pretty good big medicine. Like, when you choose to step into that kind of a relationship with God, accept that invitation to be in God and have God come and be in you, you literally become a seed to manifest that atmosphere of heaven no matter where you're at. And you don't need all the stuff. It's all a bonus. You can create that direct connection to worship God in spirit and truth wherever you're at. And that's what God is looking for right now, because, things will always shift and change. And if our stability is in things remaining as they are, so we're comfortable we're always going to be shaken. There's no foundation there, right? And so that's what's on my heart. I hope I articulated that well. We got off to a little clunky start, but I just encourage anybody out there. I know I have a mixed group of people out there listening to me, and so I try to deliver what I'm saying a little more with a broad brush, but this is specifically more for people that are feeling displaced right now because they don't have their specific routine of worship, their specific temple that they go to, or their specific church that they go to, or their specific community that they're used to being attached to, or songs they're used to singing in a community, or teachers available to them that are teaching them. It's specifically for you guys that are feeling like, I just missed that, and that'll come back around. It'll come back around. I know it will. But right now, I just encourage you guys to continue to pursue God in spirit and truth, worship God in spirit and truth. And worship's a funny word. It's like, I always picture like a bunch of like people like bowing down to a statue and like, chanting weird things. But it really means extravagant admiration for somebody in love and devotion, and once you connect with God, like the person of, it's like you can't help but do that. And I've heard that somebody once say that God, isn't an egomaniac where he needs people to worship him. It's like what we adore, what we behold, what we admire and cherish, we start to become like that. So it's really for us. It's like it says in the Bible that as when we look at God, it's like looking in a mirror at what we will become, and it's a super powerful thing to meditate on. It's not because he needs us, it's that we need it, and so I dare you guys to talk to God. I always dare people to do this because I know God will talk back. But I dare you to allow yourself to hear what he says back. And that's the hard part. And I was going to talk about learning to hear the voice of the Lord tonight, the voice of God, the voice of the Spirit, and distinguish that from your own voice. But maybe we'll talk about that next time. But for now, wherever you're at, I just encourage people to continue to talk to God. It doesn't have to look like any kind of formula or formulated thing, but that is worshiping God in spirit and truth. Like, truthfully go after him, and for those that are doing that, like, God's been looking for you and he's found you, and I just encourage you to keep do that. It's a season of dreams right now. Like, I'm dreaming like crazy. And so I'm encouraging everybody as they start dialoguing, like seeking the Lord in spirit and truth, to keep a dream journal by their bed and write their dreams down, no matter how crazy they feel. are sound. Dreams are metaphoric most of the time, and the metaphor is a message. And that seems to be how God's talking to a lot of people right now. And so as you dialogue and you stay focused on who God is and developing a relationship with him and going forward in this time where things seem like chaos, right? But if you're anchored there this way with God, like, things can blow and spin and change all around you, but this never changes, right? And that's where the source of stability is. So that is my charge to you guys tonight, is to worship God in spirit and truth. And because when you do that, God comes right into you, and he doesn't make himself very hard to find. And so, anyway, do you have anything to add to that?
Amen.
Amen. I always ask that. She always says that. Anyway, we love you guys. Sorry for the clunky beginning. If the feed was a little rough, this does upload to YouTube, and you can go back and watch it there. It will be, I'll have to go in and change the title because we started one and then stopped it and started again. So
some editing.
I think this is episode 26. But anyway, we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. And
have a good week. Be blessed.
See you next time. Guys. We promise it'll be more polished next time.
I don't know if we can promise that.
God willing, it'll be promised. It'll be more polished next time. Good night.
Bye.